Welcome back to From the Gun podcast. Your hosts Tim and Jared discuss the different aspects of the sport we've all come to love, football.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
What kind of mythical powers does the sun have? We got to consider that.
His attitude's positive. He thinks he could take on hell with a squirt gun. We tried to recruit bigger, better players to come play for us, but they went to good schools.
Yo. I like creating podcasts. You like listening to podcasts. And the best way to do that through is Anchor. 1, it is free. 2, when you create a podcast, Anchor will distribute your podcast to all the major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. 3, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. To do all this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor.fm. ANCHOR.FM to get started.
Like and subscribe, rate and review.
Please share, like, subscribe, write a review on any platform.
We would appreciate any 5-star ratings we can get. It's very kind. Week 4, just initial reactions.
Overall, I thought it was all right. Again, I think it's another week in which you saw the true colors of certain teams, i.e. Oklahoma, i.e. Clemson, i.e. a little bit of Iowa. Overall, I mean, it was pretty solid. I wouldn't say it was boring beyond any means. You had some upsets that I didn't think you'd necessarily see. You had good football across the board. There wasn't a time period in which, you have to be here and watching it at noon or 1 or 2. It was good games at noon, good games at 2, 3, good games at 6, 7, which is always enjoyable. So you don't have a lull. But yeah, I mean that I guess that is my overall take on it so far. What about you?
It looked like it was going to be a relatively quiet week. We had a lot of ranked teams lose. 2 top 10 teams lost, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
A&M and Clemson. Other ranked teams also lost. Iowa State. Yikes. North Carolina. Yikes.
Georgia Tech, one of the best teams in the ACC, question mark?
Oklahoma on the ropes again. One of the best games of the week that probably nobody watched was the Friday night game. Fresno State came back. They scored 29 points in the second half to win and beat UNLV.
Also, Thursday night matchup, insanely good game. Marshall, Appalachian State.
Yeah.
31-30, Appalachian State came back to win that.
I was going to say Marshall returned a punt for a touchdown. No, kick for a touchdown. To extend a lead?
Yes, sir.
Liberty lost at Syracuse. They never led. Syracuse was a lot better this year than they were last year. BYU stays undefeated. They beat South Florida by 8. Rutgers took Michigan down to the wire. Auburn benefited from yet another extremely questionable officiating decision and ended up winning by 10.
Also, Auburn struggled with Georgia Southern.
Mightily.
Like, they were down by double digits at one point.
Minnesota lost at home to Bowling Green. They were 30.5-point favorites.
Yikes.
Is
row the boat over, Tim? Is row the boat over?
I would argue it never started. I mean, yeah. Maryland 4-0. UConn almost won a game. Yeah, lots of good games, lots of close games this week. So I'm gonna start with a game that we didn't talk about in our preview, pick games we picked or anything. This is just a team that, other than us, I go find someone who said they were going to be good this year. As in, they'd be undefeated right now, and they'd be contending for the conference title game. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, if it's not Boston College, I'd be disappointed in you, Tim.
It is most definitely Boston College. We have Boston College and NC State right now are the 2 best teams in the ACC. And Boston College is doing this without Dracovic.
Followed closely by Georgia Tech, who almost beat Clemson and then came back and absolutely beat North Carolina.
Yeah, they just walloped North Carolina.
A team we are just seriously forgetting, Tim. The ACC is looking real interesting this year, just so you guys know. Yeah. Specifically the Atlantic. Wake Forest is 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina State is 3-1, but they just came off a dominating win over Clemson. Boston College is 4-0, and Syracuse came away with the victory over a very good Liberty team.
Louisville is also 3-1.
Yes.
They have looked like a
So
totally different team than the team that lost to Ole Miss in week 1.
you got that right. And Georgia Tech looks pretty solid right now, given all the um, back-to-back weeks of playing Clemson and beating North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that's not obviously not in the Atlantic, but that's just they're in the coastal, and it's just like I didn't see this coming. So the ACC kind of looking real interesting this year.
Yeah, no one from the conference is going to make the playoff. I think we can be
Oh, for
solid
sure.
in that
Yeah.
statement. But
I would
if
agree.
somebody different is gonna win it this year.
Yeah, I would agree. 100%.
Which at this point, that's not really saying much. That's not a brave statement because Clemson's offensive line and their offense is that bad.
But it's fresh to get someone besides Clemson.
Yes, it is nice. The thing that might keep Clemson in it is the fact that their defense is playing at a championship level.
Yeah, but they lost Breesy, their best
Yes,
player.
Brazil is out, so we'll see. But yeah, Boston College. So Boston College plays Clemson this Saturday. If they win that game, they have NC State after that. NC State plays Louisiana Tech. So NC State will go into the Boston College game 4-1. And Boston College will go into that game either also 4-1 or 5-0 off the back of a win at Clemson. And that game against NC State is in Chestnut Hill. So not to toot our own horns, but we're
gonna toot our own horns.
we're just saying it. Who said it?
I can honestly say Tim, we did.
Yeah, we absolutely did.
And we have video
did.
proof of it too, so
Yeah,
suck it.
Yes, we do. What do we think? What do you think about Iowa State? Other than the fact that they're a massive disappointment.
I don't know. I don't know, Tim. I simply don't know.
Or, sorry. I'll ask you a more specific question that I think will give us a better answer. Does Matt Campbell leave after this season for a better job?
If it's there, yes. But I don't know if there will be one because he's not rumored to the USC job.
No.
Oh, but I guess if Franklin leaves Penn State, that would almost be that would be a good fit.
I was just going to mention it.
I don't know. I don't know why they're struggling either.
The defense.
Oh, I know why. Yeah, as I say, I know why, but it's just like they are too good to be struggling this much, in my opinion.
They are,
and yet they're 2-2 and don't even look good either. And they're a couple of losses.
Credit to Baylor, who's 4-0 and thoroughly outplayed them.
For sure.
And I believe, are they now ranked? Yeah, Baylor is now ranked. They're ranked 21st. But the thing about the Baylor game is Brock Purdy went 22 of 33 for 260 and a touchdown. Breece Hall had 27 carries for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. They did their jobs, and that still wasn't enough. But Iowa State is now, I was going to say, we're at that point of the season where we can now officially start crossing teams off the list for playoff contention. Clemson and Iowa State are now officially out of the picture.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that is gone from contention, as you would say.
Yeah, Wisconsin out if they were ever really in.
Realistically, if you're going to have a shot, there's only 10 or 11 that are left.
I was going to say, a lot of the smaller dark horse teams, like North Carolina, out. USC, oh my God, USC. Did you see them play Oregon State?
Did I want to?
I mean, they lost. They got.
Oh, that bad, huh?
45-27.
Oregon State scored 45?
45-27 at the Coliseum.
Like, we're talking about this same Oregon State team that struggled on offense besides their running back for the past, 6 years.
Oregon State only lost this year is at Purdue.
Yeah, but that's still not a great loss.
Keaton Slovis threw for 350 yards and a touchdown.
And
they still lost by 18.
No, that's questionable. Don't know what to think of that, to be honest.
So, yeah, USC 2-2. They're officially out.
I think it's safe to say that.
Also, if they were ever really in,
Dante Williams will not be retained at USC. Because you never know. It's one of those that, oh, if he has a really good spell as the interim head coach, sometimes they pull the trigger and make him the head coach.
Yeah, I
It's
I I would not have anticipated them hiring him given their
no.
previous behavior with their interims, i.e., Coach O being amazing for them as an interim, and they just totally shafted him.
No, and you're a USC, so you want to make the quote unquote sexy hire.
Yeah, they're a
But
little caught up in that.
well, a lot of teams are, Tim. That's just
That's
the
true.
fact of
That's true.
life. Oh yeah, I guess what I really was gonna do, I was just gonna go through the standings
Go
of
for it.
each conference because it's quite interesting. Your top three teams in the Big 12 are Baylor, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, with Baylor leading it. Your top three teams of the Big 10, East, Michigan, Maryland, Michigan State. Michigan State is winning it.
Penn
Your
State's
top
also
10,
4-0.
they are. They just haven't I'm just going like based off of ESPN what they have listed one,
Mm-hmm.
two, three. But yes, Penn State's 1-0 in the conference. The West for Iowa. It's Iowa, Purdue, Illinois in that order.
And that's 1-4 Illinois.
Yes. Yeah, the West. The West is yikes. Independence. Army's the best team in the independent. Okay. And then your Pac-12 North leaders are Oregon, followed by Oregon State and Washington. Washington's still hanging around, Tim. Maybe they can do something. I'm just saying. But then your South leaders are Arizona State, UCLA, Utah are all at 1-0. USC's already at 1-2 in conference. So just to give you guys a little recap of, oh, I forgot the SEC. Lol. In the East, it's Georgia and Kentucky are 2-0, followed by Florida, who is 1-1, and then your West is Alabama's 1-0, followed by Arkansas and LSU, and they're all 1-0. Ole Miss and Auburn have not played an SEC game yet. Just to give you guys a little rundown on the conference or the major conferences in college football. With that being said, Tim, do you want to go into the games?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first game was at 11 a.m. It was Tim's favorite team, Golden Domers, Notre Dame versus Wisconsin at Soldier Field. And it finished, I'm looking it up, at 41-13. But I will say this, the score does not indicate how close it was for majority of the game.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, Wisconsin had to huck it to try
I
to
will,
come.
if I may,
Go for it.
I think there are three ways you could describe this game. If you're a Wisconsin fan, you would say Graham Mertz gave the game away. If you're a Notre Dame fan, you would say the defense completely overwhelmed them, and it was only a matter of time till we pulled away. If you look at it realistically, Graham Mertz turned the ball over 5 times. Notre Dame's defense forced, the 2 interceptions at the end of the game. The very last interception, you can't really blame the QB on that because that ball got tipped up into the air. So is it really his fault? No, because he put the pass right at the receiver. The receiver got hit as he was receiving the ball. So you can't blame that on him. The first pick six where he threw the pass late to the outside, that's just a do not do as a QB. That's his fault. Either way you look at it, though, if Notre Dame doesn't score, if they don't get the kick return for a touchdown and they don't get either of the pick sixes, their offense scored enough points to win this game. They would have won 20-13. If their offense wouldn't have scored at all, they still would have won the game 21-13. So it's like somewhere in the middle of those two things. Of yet Mertz played a god-awful game, but that was a combination of he made very poor decisions, but Notre Dame's defense also did a very good job in the second half of adjusting. But the biggest thing in this game to me, and I think you'll agree with this, is Wisconsin couldn't move the ball on the ground. They ran a toss left from inside the 30 that went for like 12 or 15 yards. And then they threw a little shovel pass to Malusi, the running back, that went for like 40-something yards in the third quarter. And that was the drive they scored the touchdown on. And that was their longest, other than the pass down the middle, that was their longest play from scrimmage of the game. But that's still, I guess that's not a running play, is it? Because that's a shovel pass, right?
If you're passing it in front of the quarterback, it is a pass.
Okay.
But if it's behind him, it's a run.
Because I believe Wisconsin ran for 78 yards in this game. Notre Dame didn't run for very many yards either. This was very,
Tim, I'm
yes.
looking at the stats right now. Notre Dame ran for 9.
Yeah, I was going to say. But that's a product of, well, what's this? A lot of that's a product of sacks. Um, if you take away the sacks, they still ran for 39 yards, Jared, which is still nothing. But Notre Dame has not, their ground game has been non existent this year. They fully committed to just airing it out. But they're more capable of that than Wisconsin is. But Wisconsin running the ball for 75 yards. The way they play football, they will. It is impossible for them to win a game if they don't run for more than that. Because they just and tell me whether or not you agree with this. Wisconsin, the way that their offense is set up and just like their style of football, they are not built to come back.
No.
So as soon as Notre Dame strip sacked Mertz in the middle of the field and then scored a touchdown to make it 24-13, it felt like it was probably over. And then when they kicked the field goal to make it 27-13, it was really over. Because there just wasn't enough time left for Wisconsin to come back. But I would agree with you that the scoreline makes it look like Notre Dame just like handled them. But, I mean, last couple of minutes of the third quarter, it was still tight. And it could have gone either way.
Yeah, the fourth quarter is what really Notre Dame scoring 31
Yeah.
of their 41.
Yeah. Which is huge for Notre Dame because when you're a team that, since they're not in the conference, they have to go undefeated to make the playoff or to even be considered for the playoff. They need, like, and especially for the way they played the first 3 games, they needed a big margin in a game like this. So the pick sixes really helped them. Because for anybody who didn't watch this game, you'd look at the scoreline and think, wow, not close. But if you watched it, you'd know that the last 12 minutes of the game was not close at all. But up to that point, it was a battle. Yeah, as a non Notre Dame fan, what did you think about Drew Pine at quarterback after Cohn got hurt?
I thought he was all right. I mean, he played, in my opinion. I don't know. I have two thoughts about it. Did Cone play bad? No. But Notre Dame's offensive line, this is the worst line they've had in years.
Absolutely.
Like their line is not good. Wisconsin's offensive line is not good. So it's like a culmination of like, is Pine better than Cone? Maybe not. But because of how bad Notre Dame's offensive line is, because they're getting pressure too often, that would Jack Cohn normally for Notre Dame be good? Yeah, he would be a good quarterback for them. But because of how bad the play is up on the hog mollies, it's just you need Notre Dame needs to find someone back there that has the wheels because the pocket is going to break down. Like that is just gonna happen regardless. So do I think Pine's bad or good? I don't think he's terrible. I think he will offer more than what Cone can this year because of the deficiencies. But I guess I don't necessarily think he is a better all-around player, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to describe it. Because I would agree. Cohn's limited mobility compounds the issue of a very green offensive line.
Yeah.
That's why he gets sacked so much. Like he's getting pressured a lot, but because he can't get out of the pocket, like that, like we are seeing the difference between a guy like Ian Book, who has that very good sense, which comes with experience, to like know when to scramble, but then also be able to scramble. I think Cohn knows when to scramble. It's just that he can't. He can't get out of the pocket fast enough. But he's not a very mobile quarterback. But I would agree with you. If Notre Dame had like last year's offensive line, he would probably be great for them because he'd have all the protection he would need.
Well, that and maybe Ian Book also made Notre Dame's offensive line look better than they were.
Oh yeah, because he could avoid a lot of
Yeah.
sacks.
So therefore, stats show that, oh, they're better than what you would
Yeah.
anticipate.
Which I was going to say, it's hard any year, and Texas A&M is finding this out too, because Texas A&M and Notre Dame both lost 4 offensive linemen. I don't know if all 4 of A&M's linemen went to the NFL. I would assume so. But I know the 4 from Notre Dame all went to the NFL, and Texas A&M is having the same problems. Whoever comes next after that, it's like, sorry.
Yeah, it sucks.
like there's gonna be some growing pains there. But
Yeah,
I
because
think
you're so used to just
yeah, but it's
you're
like
so used to one thing. So when you get that other thing, the opposite thing of what you're so used to in football sense,
yeah,
you're just
um,
like, man, this sucks. Like AE, our friend Marty criticized Spencer Rattler, and it's like, oh, this is the first time where you haven't had a quarterback in 7 years that has been bad. You had 2 back-to-back first-round draft picks, or 3 back-to-back first-round draft picks, 2 back-to-back Heisman
yeah, 2
winners.
Heisman winners in a row.
Yeah, so therefore that eventually it was going to come down, or the expectations for Oklahoma's quarterbacks was eventually going to hit where it's like, is Spencer Rattler a bad quarterback? No. Is he good? Yes. It's just Oklahoma was so used to the best quarterback in college football that when the best isn't what they have, they're all just like, well, he needs to be benched. And like, I don't know if you saw, their student section was cheering for them to
Yes,
bench him. And I was like, damn, that tough, huh? So,
yeah,
and then it's obviously it's like that across the board when you have excellence, and besides Alabama. Alabama might be the only one that's not in that quarter category. But yeah, Wisconsin's their their offense is bad.
yeah, and I know because we watched this game together, and I and we talked about this. Mertz is a sophomore. It's very easy to forget that he has only. I mean, has he played 10 games yet?
He played no because of last year. Wisconsin, remember they were out
Um, yeah, I'm looking up their
because
schedule.
they missed 2 games and you played 8, so we would have played 6. This year he's only played 3, so I believe he would have been
They played 7 games last year. They played a bowl game,
out in it. Okay.
so he has now played. That's only his 10th start in college. So I I'm willing to watch Mertz play and see him because he threw some. He made some good throws, and the touchdown drive that they had. He like he looked good. Like he looked good on that drive, and he had the deep ball over the top that they hit on, but they ended up turning it over on 4th and 1. He had flashes in this game, but it is so easy to forget. He has not even played a full season yet. So he
No,
does
but
he
even after 10 games, your stat line should not read 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions with only 500 yards.
no, no, it should
That's
not.
like
Um,
it.
but I'm curious to see if this is if by the end of this season, as he gets more games and experience, you'll see him like find a rhythm, and then next year he'll hit the ground running, or if this is just kind of what he is, and he's kind of the comparison that I think to make initially is Adrian Martinez esque, where very first games out of the gate he looks awesome, and you think, okay, we have a good guy here who can develop and really grow into this, and he's got a good ceiling. But then you kind of come to realize that you're a lot closer to the ceiling than you thought you were, or he is a lot closer to the ceiling than you thought he was in terms of his development and improvement, and they just don't necessarily pan out the way you thought they would, because the expectation, I mean, with Mertz after the first 2 games Wisconsin played last year, he looked awesome.
But then it fell real hard.
Yeah, but then when they finally got to play games again, he was terrible. He was terrible. Granted, it was against better competition. So true freshman, not true freshman, sorry. Just a freshman quarterback playing his first games, you would expect him to struggle more against the better teams, but night and day difference in quality. And So far through the first 3 games of the season, he has continued to look bad.
Yeah, but watching the game, you got to agree. Wisconsin doesn't have guys that can get open. So like
Because this is the
at that
first. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
or like at that point, Mertz has just gotta almost have to just like throw it, which probably I don't want to say it's all his fault because I don't think it's all his fault, but
I would agree.
all the blame should not necessarily go on Graham Mertz because he has no wide receivers that can create space in open field,
Yeah, this
and
is the.
it's hard to throw like that. It is just
I
simply
say
hard to throw.
this is the first Wisconsin team probably in the last 5 or 6 years that hasn't had at least like one like go-to dynamic receiver paired with like one or two reliable tight ends. Um, and we know like Wisconsin football, like the dink and dunk to the tight ends and like the
That's
fullbacks
legit.
and stuff out in the flat, like that, like those are their setup plays, and that's their bread and butter. They do that. They go like power right fullback trap, like that's a guarantee with Wisconsin. But like they don't have a real difference maker at running back. They don't have any difference makers at the skill positions. And also again to be fair to Graham and Mertz, you start to get you're down 14 points. This is before the 2 pick sixes. You're down 27-13. Last 5-6 minutes of the game, you don't have time to run the ball. You have to throw. It's the only way you can get back into it and have enough time on the clock to have a chance at winning, which is why, I mean, he finished with 41 passing attempts. How often is Wisconsin going to throw it 41 times in a game this year?
Well, maybe a lot this year
I
because
if they
they might
can't,
be
yeah,
down.
say if they
Might
can't
be
run, they might do it a lot. But traditionally, that's a really high number for Wisconsin.
agree.
But they have no choice. They had to get back into the game, so you throw more, and like you said, you don't have the difference makers at the skill positions. It is going to be more difficult because then you're relying on you're relying on Mertz to like help throw people open. And when you're Notre Dame and you know they have to throw in so you can rush three and drop into like zones like prevent schemes, it's not hard to defend that.
I would agree.
But yeah, I guess what's your takeaway on Wisconsin from this game?
Once again, top. They have to have a top five defense easily, and that defense could only lead them so far this year, which is very
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. I offensively they're struggling. I don't know if it's time to think about firing Paul Christ
How long has he
or
been there?
he's been there. He's been there a while, Tim. This has to be his like ninth or 10th year, I think.
Well, he was after Bielema, right?
No, Gary Anderson was after Bielema.
Oh, I
Then
don't even
Gary
remember that
Anderson got
guy.
fired after 1 year,
Oh, okay.
2 years, and then they hired Chris.
Okay.
But he needs to find someone that can draw up a better offense, or they need to start not. They need to switch up how they play.
They could still run their offense, but they need to be capable of when they need to or when they want to. Like they need to be able to like run like some like spread stuff or something similar. They have to be able to throw it on command. Is probably just the best way to put it. Because if they can't, no one has to respect it.
Oh, they do.
So yeah, we have Notre Dame 41, Wisconsin 13. I've been saying it when we go to pick our games. I believe I forgot to say it for this game. The line for this game was Wisconsin 6.5. So
And looks like
I was gonna say so by the betting in the betting world, this was a big upset.
huge upset.
But this further backs me up on the Notre Dame is a good bet to cover, if not just win outright. But anyway, so I get points for this because I picked Notre Dame as my wild card game, I believe. Or did we pick this as one of our three?
We picked it as one of the three.
Okay. Did we both get points for this?
We did because I had Notre Dame as well.
Okay.
So last week, ended on 21, which means he has 23. I ended on 9, which means I have 11.
And I don't think any of us, neither of us came close to the score line on this game.
No.
Scoreline or margin. We came close to Wisconsin's number.
Yeah.
Because I think what I had,
I was
you had,
4 away.
did
We
you?
both had 17.
We both had 17.
Yes, sir.
Did I have Notre Dame 21 or 20?
23.
23.
I had 20.
You had 20. Okay. It looked like we were going to be right there. Okay. What do we got next?
We got Texas A&M versus Arkansas.
Oh boy.
Wait, let me just say it right now. We both got this wrong.
Yeah.
So let me take our 2 points we just got, and now we're back.
Now we just
21-9. Tim, what are your thoughts on this game?
Oh no, I thought it was just -1 for not getting it.
Okay, -1. Oh yeah, you're right. I think it's -1 plus 2 for winning.
Yeah.
20. The score now on our competition is Tim has 22 points. I have 10.
Okay.
After this week, because we both had A&M. Tim had them 27-20. I had them 24-23. So Tim, tell us your thoughts on this game.
Okay. So I already talked about Texas A&M a little bit, and I'm going to use that again as my lead-in. They have 4 new offensive linemen this year. You add in the fact they're playing with a backup quarterback who, if you watched them play Colorado and then also this game, Zach Calzada, he is very clearly not up to task, but he's the best they have. So that he's what they have to use. Like, they just got to go with him. I don't think Texas A&M was going to be as good this year as they were last year at year end, regardless of whether Haynes King stayed healthy or not. But a lot of that, I think, is a byproduct of more teams are good this year, more people are playing games, and they have a new quarterback and a new offensive line. They're not the same team. You don't have the same chemistry. You don't have the same kind of mojo. That stuff's always different from year to year. Add in the fact that 2 teams in the SEC West are remarkably improved in Arkansas and Ole Miss. Your division got that much harder. I don't know. And we talked off air a little bit before we recorded about the rankings and how this is no matter how you look at it, this is a very good win for Arkansas. But is Texas A&M really the 7th best team in the country with a new offensive line and their backup quarterback? Probably not.
Beat Colorado.
I say yes.
Requiring
a touchdown pass at the death to win against Colorado, who got thumped by Minnesota.
I don't know if we can stress that enough, Tim.
You're probably
Colorado is not good.
You're probably not the number 7 team in the country.
Nor the 13, according to the coaches poll.
So Arkansas, on the flip side, they came out on fire in the first half. They couldn't get anything going in the second half. Not a single thing. They scored 3 points in the second half, but they had 17. They had all the points they needed to win by halftime. Texas A&M has now scored 10 points in this game. They scored 10 points against Colorado. So they've only 10 points in each game that Zach Calzada has started for them. Isaiah Spiller is the only offense they've generated, really. Because if I'm not mistaken, he caught the touchdown pass against Colorado. So things are not looking good for A&M. Things are looking very good for Sam Pittman in Arkansas. But again, are they going to win their next 3 games?
Yes.
At Georgia, at Ole Miss, Auburn at home. That's their next 3.
That's clearly 3-0.
So they play the best defense in the country next week. They play the best offense in the country the week after that. Both of those are road games. Then they play Auburn. I think they'll beat Auburn. I think they'll lose to Georgia. I think they're going to lose to Ole Miss, but I think that's more a product of Ole Miss just scores so much. But not to be mistaken, Sam Pittman has completely turned them around from where they were with like Brett Bielema and then whoever was right after Brett Bielema. I don't remember.
Morris.
Yeah, but in not even 2 full seasons, they're totally different. They're completely different. And the Texas win looks really good now because Texas just scored 70 points against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
So Granted, Texas started that game with a different quarterback than the one they started against Arkansas. But Texas looks like they're going to be the most like roller coaster team of all time. But so good win for Arkansas. It looked like they were going to really run away with it, and then they didn't. So you'd think, okay, maybe there's some cause for concern that they just kind of sleptwalk through the second half and only won by 10 when they were up 17-0. But Arkansas is not going to win the West. They're not going to go to the playoff this year. But with regards to the direction they're heading, this is great for them. Like, they're way ahead of schedule.
Yeah, and from where they were at 2 years ago, being the second worst SEC team to where they are now is quite impressive.
Yeah. It's like
I see.
If they can win one of their next 3 games and be 5-2 going into their last 5 games, that's amazing. Like that is incredible for them. So what do we think about A&M?
I simply think they're overrated. I don't think they look like a top 25 team. Granted, they lost their starting quarterback, but I mean, they're looking at their schedule right now. Mississippi State might be a little tough, but you're going to lose to Bama. You still have to play Ole Miss. You're probably going to lose to them. Auburn's a 50-50. LSU's a 50-50. So they have 2 guaranteed losses left. So that's 9-3 at the best. And then you get those 50-50 games. I do not like where they're at because defensively they're very good, but offensively they're bad. I think at the best A&M finishes 8-4 this year.
I think they're going to lose to Alabama, Mississippi, and then I think they're going to lose 4 games.
Okay.
I think they'll split Auburn and LSU. They'll win one and lose one. I just don't know which one. I could see them beating Auburn at home because Auburn's offense is just so all over the place.
Yeah.
And playing at LSU is just really difficult. But I could also see it be Auburn's a better team than LSU, so Auburn beats them, but then it doesn't matter that it's LSU last game of the season because you know where you stand at that point. They might just be better than they just pound for pound. They might just be a better team than LSU, and it won't matter that they're playing on the road.
I would agree.
But I think they'll lose 4 games. But I was going to say, for all intents and purposes, they're effectively out of the playoff race.
They are. How many teams left? Really?
No, I was going to say because you already have a loss in the column, and you have yet to play Alabama. Not looking good for you.
Yeah.
All right. So we both lost a point on that one.
Unfortunately, and we're both losing a point here.
Are we? Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have to talk about this?
Technically, I did have the right margin, but I picked the loser.
Yeah, you picked the loser.
So therefore, I will not be giving you points. Yeah. So the reason me and Tim are giving this reaction is because the game we're about to talk about is Nebraska at Michigan State. We both had Nebraska winning. Tim had 34-30. I had 30-27. The actual score of the game was 23-20. And if you ever want to know a game that the winning team should just not have won, this is a great example of that.
Yeah, because, I mean, Michigan State tied the game on a punt return for a touchdown where Nebraska lined up in their coverage team. They were supposed to kick it to the right because their coverage team went that way. Their punter kicked it to the left where no one on the hands team went. So Michigan State's return man just caught it and ran in a straight line to the end zone, which that's a microcosm of the Scott Frost era at Nebraska. Just
Michigan
you
State
do that. Yeah, you do that one little thing right, and then that's a total non-issue. They win the game most likely. Because again, yeah, Michigan State got how many yards did they even have? Like 9 or something yards. They couldn't move the ball. Their offense was dead. But Nebraska special teams has cost them now 2 games in a row.
3.
Sorry, I say 2 games because it's like, 2 games where if they do those things right, like that, the direct effect on the scoreline is the difference. I don't include the Illinois game in there because they just look so bad, just all around. But it's just Nebraska special teams. They make their kicks and they avoid the blocked PAT against Oklahoma. They win, and then their punter punts it to the right side of the field. They almost certainly close that one out. Granted, their Adrian Martinez hadn't fumbled in a really long time, and then he decided to do it at the most inopportune moment, which that's also kind of him in a nutshell. Which I feel bad for him because he'd been playing so well over the last 3 or 4 games.
But it's not his fault.
No, that I say that fumble is not the reason that they lost.
Screw the commercials. They did it again. God damn you, man.
I say that fumble is not the reason they lost the game. It certainly didn't help because it was at just the worst time. But the interception he threw in overtime I was disappointed at that because I thought that's not an interception you throw as a 4th-year quarterback. That's an interception you throw as a 1st or 2nd-year starter who's trying to make a play. He should know better than to do that, especially because he had 2 receivers open in the end zone that he just didn't look at. I mean, he telegraphed the last pass on the interception. He stared that guy down from a mile away. It was no secret the ball was going there. And that's really been, if there's one thing he could improve on over this last stretch of the season, it's going through his progressions and really seeing the field, which easier said than done because his offensive line doesn't protect him very well. So there's a lot of cases where he doesn't have time to do that. But when he does, you'd like to see him do it because he should be more than capable of doing that by this point. But Nebraska's defense came to play in this game. They played so well. Michigan State's defense played really well, but I suppose that's the type of game we thought it was going to be. I know we both predicted a good amount of points, but I would venture to say that if you really pressed us deep down, like what do you think this game's going to look like? We both would probably have defaulted to there's going to be a lot of defense. Would you disagree with that?
Nope.
And the thing that gave me confidence that Nebraska was really going to close this one out is the fact that they held Kenneth Walker in check so well. They did such a good job bottling him up, which I was actually very impressive for a defense that's in the Scott Frost era has traditionally struggled to contain good dynamic running backs. They really held him in check, and they never let him really do anything. No chunk plays until he had the run in overtime where he almost scored a touchdown. That was his best play of the game. But up until then, they really bottled him up, and they did a great job of that. But the one thing that I really had a gripe with in this game, and I'd have the same thought even if I didn't like Nebraska, this was just confusing to me, is they had 2 timeouts left and 25 seconds left on the clock, and they had the ball at the 35 or the 40, and they let the clock run out. They consciously made the decision to go to overtime instead of try and get 25 yards and win it with a field goal, or at least attempt a field goal, which I saw we watched this game together too, and I saw your reaction to this in person, and the reactions of everyone else we were watching it with in person. That's just not the kind of decision where you see that and you think, okay, this coach really believes in his offense. That's the kind of decision you make if you're trying to mitigate disaster. It's very defeatist and pessimistic because do you really not think that with 25 seconds and 2 timeouts you can gain 25 yards? I was blown away by that decision, and that's one of those where you think, oh, if they lose this game in overtime, Scott Frost is really going to come in to have to answer for that. And I haven't followed up with any of the interviews or press conferences or any of the columns about it, just because I've chosen not to. But I thought that's the kind of decision where that defines you as a coach, and the way you approach the games and manage your team and display the confidence in your team that you either have or do not have in your team. And it's just, that's the kind of thing where I think in the back of my head, it's just that's somebody who, if they were, I would think that somebody who would actively make that choice, that's somebody who feels like they're coaching for their job. But I mean, he signed an extension, and they'd have to pay $1 bajillion to buy him out. So I don't feel like he's in a position where he's coaching for his job. And as I don't have any more to say about it because there's nothing else I can say that makes any sense of it. I was blown away that they let the last 20 to 25 seconds just melt off the clock and just willingly choose to play an overtime game on the road against a ranked team.
Well, that's what happens when the offensive line is absolutely terrible. So,
Oh, that's true. How many false starts did they get this week? 4, 5?
2 on 1 drive. I think it was 3 or 4.
Okay, not as many as the Oklahoma game, but
No,
still too
but
many.
here's the thing. I will say this on top, and I'll say it very loudly. Scott Frost is the man to take Nebraska forward. And if Nebraska fires him, they will be setting back Nebraska football farther than it is currently. And that's not an opinion that many people might have towards Scott Frost, but I'll tell you why. If there were more holes in Scott Frost's team than only two separate categories, aka offensive linemen and special teams, I would say, yeah, okay, fire him. That's fine. The defense is very good. Wide receivers are good. Running backs are relatively good when there's good blocking. Adrian Martinez is making a lot of plays out of nothing. So you boil it down, there are two problems with Nebraska. It has nothing to do with talent on the field. When people make that argument, they literally have not watched a Nebraska football game over the past 4 years and have seen the progress that has been made. This year, Nebraska's not going to lose a game because they have less talent than the opposing team, even Michigan, Ohio State. In my opinion, not the case. The problem for Nebraska not being 4-1, 5-0 this year is not because of the special teams, it's because of the offensive line. We have seen this year that when Adrian Martinez gets a clean pocket, he is able to hit that guy 40, 50 yards down the field. And as we know, Nebraska's offense, the one good thing about Scott Frost, there seems to always be a guy downfield open. But Adrian Martinez doesn't have the time to be able to sit in the pocket, read it, see the guy, throw it to him. And if going into the offseason, I think Scott Frost is sticking this year. I don't think Nebraska's going to fire him like many people want. Two, I don't blame Adrian Martinez for this game at all. Yes, he did have the sack. That one, I will, fine. Or he did have the fumble, fine. But again, if Nebraska had any other quarterback than Martinez, Nebraska's probably, or it seems like Nebraska would be, they'd still probably be 2-3, but they would not have been in any of their losses, any of them. So yes, Martinez is the easy scapegoat for many people, but he's ultimately not the issue. And if Nebraska could fix the offensive line, which I don't know if they can this year, Nebraska will finish, in my opinion, 7-5, because the schedule for them is not terrible, in my opinion. So you have Northwestern, winnable game. Michigan, I think, is severely overrated. They haven't really played anyone relatively good. And Nebraska might be the best defense that they see up until this point. I'm just kidding. They play Wisconsin this week. Nebraska will be the second best defense they play. And remember, Rutgers held them within 7. So Michigan's probably not going to blow Nebraska out of the water. Ohio State is struggling, but you go versus Northwestern this week, versus Michigan, at Minnesota, Purdue. That's a feasible stretch where Nebraska can actually be 4-0, 3-1 after that stretch. Versus Purdue, versus Ohio State, at Wisconsin, versus Iowa. The last 3 are going to be tough, but Wisconsin has showed offensively they can't do anything. Ohio State has struggled on offense, and their defense isn't nearly as good as it has been the past. I shouldn't say last year their defense wasn't great, but under Urban Meyer or under Ryan Day, their defense has progressively gotten worse and worse. And Iowa's, simply put, statistically not a top 5 team this year. So yes, right now you look at the team, it's 2-3, 0-2 in conference, but we know that that's not who they are. They are a better team. Heck, they might be the best 2-3 team in the country. And they're going to be a tough out this year. If Nebraska fires Scott Frost, like I've seen many people on social media want to get rid of him, I think that is the completely wrong way to go about it. And all Nebraska needs to do next year is hire a new offensive line coach and a new special teams coach. Or I should say, not a new one, actually specifically hire a guy that only coaches special teams the whole time. But
If
I
I may
think
piggyback onto some of your comments, because
go for it.
I didn't think to say them, but I agree with them. I think going forward, the last 2 weeks, you look at Nebraska, you think, okay, you lose by 8 points, 8 points at Oklahoma, 7 points.
No,
You
seven
lost by
points.
a touchdown at Oklahoma, a field goal in overtime at Michigan State. Michigan State is a game you really should have won. Oklahoma is a game that you most definitely could have won.
Does your vitamin C
Um,
last?
Damn commercials, dude. Shit, I clicked on it.
It is. This is another thing where you have Nebraska, who's 2-3 right now, but they play. You have Northwestern at home. The line is Nebraska 10.5. You would expect Nebraska. The way Nebraska has played the last 2 weeks, they should beat Northwestern without question. And I would agree with you. They have been for very very long stretches of the game the last 2 weeks. They have been the better team on the field, which makes like Northwestern should be a win. Minnesota should be a win. Purdue should be a win. And then the Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa, like you mentioned, the games against the better, the top, the higher level teams in the conference. Those games are now very interesting because we know, Nebraska can compete and be in those games for the whole game. It's like I'm very very interested if Nebraska takes care of business against Northwestern. They're 3-3 going into the Michigan game. I'm very very interested, given how Michigan struggled with Rutgers. Very interested to see how that game goes since it's in Lincoln, because the atmosphere should be really good.
ABC 6:30 p.m.
Yes, that's a night game. You have two night games in a row. So if Nebraska's 500, and they're playing a ranked Michigan team at home, that atmosphere should be very very nice, because you will have fans there who know the team on the field is capable of competing and potentially winning that game, because like you said, you have two position groups that are dragging the team down. The offensive line and special teams. The defense is where it needs to be. The passing game is where it needs to be. The running game, I would argue the running game has been effective for how bad the line has been. It's just, this is another one of those, the record's not very good, but you can see tangible progress on the field if you watch all the games. Because if you would have said, oh, we're going to go and play at Oklahoma and lose by a touchdown, I'd take that every day of the week, given where they are right now. But I would also agree with you. Scott Frost is the guy moving forward. I think they've committed too much and given him too much time already. I think you have to let him figure this out. I would agree that firing him would significantly set you back.
See, I don't think it's just you've put too much time and money into him. I think he is the guy that will bring them forward and out of the hole.
I'll clarify that comment.
I think it's just taken longer than anticipated.
I'll clarify that comment. When I say that, what I mean is you have labeled him as you have given him the stamp of approval as we think he is the guy, which would then mean you are going to give him, you are going to allow him the time to get everything where he needs to go. But I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it. He's an inexperienced head coach who has a lot to learn still, and you can see it. He's learning on the job. This is a huge job for somebody who had the limited experience he had. I think he can do it. It's just going to take him time to fully learn the ropes. But we have seen him, we have seen him in charge of teams that have been dynamic and electric and very very good. It's we know that he's capable of getting teams there, and it's ridiculous that people want to fire him now, given that we're playing probably the last 4 weeks. You don't include the Illinois game, but the last 4 weeks, this is probably the best stretch of football we've played since he's been the coach. So it's two just heart-wrenching losses. But they hurt that badly because we were in positions to win, which is where you want to be. So It's like, oh, pick your poison. You're either not in the game at all, you're that close. And I would every day of the week, I would rather lose in the fashion we've lost in the last 2 weeks than not even be in that position at all.
Yeah, because we haven't been in the position the last 3 years.
No, and this is part of the process.
Yeah. So, with that being said, Tim, let's transition to our picks.
Let's
Just
do it.
pick any 5 games you want. So I'm picking. I'll go first. I'm just gonna give a quick blurb. I'm picking Iowa. Iowa plays at Maryland this week, and I am picking the Terps on Friday night at 7 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. I'm picking Maryland to win by 3,
Ooh.
23-20. Iowa was very good defensively, but offensively they struggle. And I think with the improvement of Maryland's defense from last year to this year, and Maryland having one of the most explosive offenses in the Big Ten, I think this is Maryland's breakout game to show people how good they are. So
They have the
I got
offense.
they do. That is for sure. All right. Who you picking, Tim? Who's your first game this week?
Okay. My first game of the week is going to be I'm going to take Cincinnati at Notre Dame. The line right now in this game is in South Bend. The line right now is Cincinnati 2.5. That's going to move.
Really interesting.
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting because if Jack Cohn can start, Jack Cohn's going to start for Notre Dame. Brian Kelly has said as much. This game's going to come down to defense. I think we know that going into it. It's going to be much like the Wisconsin game. Cincinnati has a significantly better offense than Wisconsin, but this is still going to be very much a defensive-minded game. This is going to be Notre Dame's got the best defense Cincinnati's going to play all year, and I expect this to be a really good game because since Indiana's kind of been a little this is the game. If Cincinnati wants to make any noise this year, if they want to be considered legitimate in any way, shape, or form, they got to win this game. So you know they're going to give it everything they've got. And also, if you're Notre Dame, this is the best game on your schedule for the season because UCLA and North Carolina have been disappointing.
Yeah, they've been a big.
So for each of these teams, this is the best game on the schedule. So this is a must-win for both. I'm going to continue to take Notre Dame. I'm going to take Notre Dame 27-24.
Close, okay. The next game I'm going to choose, this one, I will admit, this one is just a guaranteed points game for me. But I'm picking Appalachian State over Georgia State. Like I said, it's Appalachian State should win. Georgia State has struggled this year so far, 3-1. Georgia State, I apologize, is 1-3. Appalachian State is 3-1. And we'd be joking if App State's not kind of in 2 weeks already looking at that matchup with Coastal Carolina. So I think this is going to be a tune-up game for them, and App State's going to win 45-20.
Oh.
All right, Tim, what's your second game you want?
I'm going to take Georgia over Arkansas 20-10. The line is Georgia 18.5.
That's a very big
Yeah,
line.
but Georgia scored a ton of points in the last 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in the last 3. 56, 40, and 62. But granted, that was against UAB, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. So.
Okay.
But I think Arkansas is going to stick around, and they're going to make a game of it because, I mean, they're riding high right now. They got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I'd agree. They're just going to go for it.
Yep. Yeah, 20-10.
What'd you say, 20-10?
Yeah, 20-10.
Okay. The next game, Tim, I've fallen in this trap again. But I am picking the Ole Miss at Bama.
Okay.
And like I said, I've fallen in this trap before. I'm picking Ole Miss to come out on top.
What's the score?
48-40.
Wow.
Because there's going to be points. Both defenses aren't great, but they're serviceable. And Matt Corral is just the best quarterback statistically this year through 3 games that he has played. and probably your front runner for the Heisman. So
Yes.
I am riding the better quarterback. So I got Ole Miss.
I am also picking that game next, and that is also my big upset pick for the week.
Oh,
I have Ole Miss 45-41.
oh, so very, very,
Yeah,
very similar thoughts.
yeah. Although part of me thinks their offense is better, and they scored 48, 50, like 51 last year. Yeah, I'll take 45-41. The line is
Okay.
Alabama 14.5, but the over under number right now is at a solid 79. So there's very obviously points in this game.
Yeah,
So
there's going to be.
I'll take 45-41, and if you're betting with me, take Ole Miss and the over.
Yes, I would too.
Don't put that much on it.
No, I'm actually going to pick Baylor over Oklahoma State.
Okay.
It's going to be 28-21. Baylor.
Are you ready for my pick?
I am.
Okay, so I'll be brave where you refuse to be. I will take Kansas State beating Oklahoma for the third year in a row. The line is Oklahoma 10.5. That's outrageous. If you've watched them play, you know that that's crazy talk. K-State seems to have their number. I don't know what it is. I have no reason to bet. No tangible proof or evidence to back up this pick, other than the fact that K-State they are the team that Oklahoma cannot beat. So I'm gonna pick them. I feel like I have to. I will take K-State 34, Oklahoma 28. No, what am I saying? They're not going to score enough touchdowns. They're going to have to kick field goals. They just are. I'll take them 34-30.
Yeah, K-State's beating Oklahoma for all the reasons that Tim said. 20-17. It's going to be a slugfest, baby.
Wow. All right.
All right, Tim, what's your last one, baby?
My last one, I will take Nebraska against Northwestern. Line's Nebraska 10.5 right now for a night game at home. I mean, Northwestern has wins against Indiana State and Ohio. They lost to Michigan State and Duke. So, there is a divide in the skill and ability of these two teams. I'm going to take Nebraska 38-17.
They are not good. What are games that you did not have on your list, Tim, that you are interested in?
Michigan, Wisconsin. I want to see if Wisconsin shows any sign of life or if they fold.
That was one I had too as well.
Louisville at Wake Forest. Wake Forest could be 5-0, or Louisville will be 4-1. And if Louisville wins this game and they go to 4-1, and Wake Forest sells 400, that just makes the ACC more interesting.
I'd agree.
Oregon at Stanford. Stanford either looks amazing or they're terrible. They're one or the other. And you don't know which one you're going to get. And that game in the last decade has been very contentious. Ohio State at Rutgers. So Ohio State by 15.5 is the line right now. I mean, Rutgers gave Michigan a game. Rutgers, big turnaround. They look like they're a way more disciplined and better run team under Greg Schiano. Arizona State, UCLA. I'm interested to see if UCLA, if that's close, or if UCLA handles them.
Anything else to add, Tim, before we get out?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yes. Gracias and adios.
Adios.
If you liked this episode, please give us a follow or subscription on whatever platform you are on. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please contact us at our email given in the description of each episode below. Take care and have a blessed day.